Hey all, welcome. This is the second part of our Python interview series. And in this part, we are going to give the basics of Python. And here the basics of Python deals with what do you mean by literals, what are the types of values that a Python can deal with, and how can you name those values, and what do you mean by keyword, and what do you mean by variable. So these are the things that we are going to address in this video. So in this series, the first question is, what do you mean by Python literals? And to start off with the question, we need to have a basic understanding that all the programs or instructions that were given to the machine to accomplish a task. So the instruction has to work on some inputs, right? Some data. So those data are collectively called as literals, which we can also call it as input. So Python can take four different types of inputs. One is numeric literals, string literals, boolean literals, and some data structures. And this data structures includes sequence and strings, list, tuples, dictionaries, and sets. So literal is simply a raw data which is given in a variable or constant. By default, all the identifiers which are given to input will be treated as variables unless we specify this as a constant, right? Okay, so in numeric literals, it deals with numbers, zeros, ones, numerical. Okay, in string is actually a sequence of characters which forms a word or even a sentence that will be enclosed in a single quotation or double quotation or triple quotation. In most of the cases, triple quote strings were used as doc strings, which is inside a program. Okay, then boolean literals. We will see boolean literals in a while. Then list, tuples, sequence, and sets. These are all the sequences. Here we are going to speak more than one input. So there can be a case that your program can deal with a group of inputs together. Just take an example of your ID card. So there were number of inputs. There is a photograph, there is a number, there is an address. So a group of or collection of different types of data. So Python gives you a feature that you can club up your inputs as you wish by using these kind of sequences. So the next question in the series is, what is Python identifiers, or why do we require identifiers? So to answer the question, let me give you an example. So you and your friends are standing in somewhere else, and I just wanted to call you. How can I call you? By using your name, right? So identifier also doing the same purpose, but it does two purposes for us. Identifier is a name given to a data variable, or it can also be assigned to a group of statements inside a program for the same purpose. Now we are going into another example. I wanted to add two values, 10 and 20. So I got that values 10 and 20 from the users. I saved it inside my memory. Okay, now the thing came and I need to add them. So in order to add those values, I need to know where I saved 10 and 20. And in modern machines, it is 16-bit hexadecimal number. So to remember 10, I need to remember the 16-bit hexadecimal address. That is very tough. Whenever your input size grows, whenever you're dealing with more number of inputs, I need to remember so many things, so many 16-bit hexa. So to cut short this, Python or any other programming language gives us a feature to name the 16-bit memory address as a string name like A, B, C, D, or you can give integer 1, int 1, int 2, int 3, or as you wish. So now there is no need to remember the address. It is enough for me to remember the name. Now A equal to 10, B equal to 20. So I need to add 10 and 20. I can simply call A and B, and the address will be resolved by the Python itself with the help of operating system, of course. So this is power of identifiers in terms of data. Now in terms of group of statements, so why do we need to name a group of statements, sir? See, there are some cases for example, in this case itself, I wanted to add two sets of numbers, 2a 2b. There is no need to write the same set of statements for one more time to get to the same process again. Instead of that, I can call it again by making the block of statements as a function, right? So function is simply a name of a block. It's a named block. And can we name of our own? No, we have some rules to be followed. So identifier can be a combination of any letters. It can be an alphanumeric. With one exception, you can use underscore. But it is advisable not to use underscore as you wish, because Python system defined functions started with underscore underscore and ends with underscore underscore. So Python has a perception that okay, if some function started with underscore underscore, that will be a Python built-in function. So don't create any ambiguity. So if you wanted to use underscore, you can use in between, right? Then an identifier should not start with a number. You can use number, of course, anywhere else, but not in the first letter. And keywords should not be used as identifiers. Sir, what is keywords? Keywords are verbs or the things that Python can perform, right? Like humans can run, walk, Python can do different tasks. So those were collectively called as keywords. So you should not use keywords as your identifier. So it get confused. So whether I should do the work or it is a name. And at this juncture, I would like to tell all our identifiers are nouns. Okay, and we should except underscores, there were no special symbols were allowed to name your identifiers in Python. So that's all. So what do you mean by keywords? As I said already, keywords are verbs. Keywords are the abilities of your programming language, right? Every programming language has a small set of keywords that are important to the language. Keywords are simply can be called as a predefined reserved words that has a special meaning. So you should not use those keywords as a part of other programming statements like identifiers or something else, right? In general, there are two types of keywords or in any programming language. The first type is that it qualifies the data we are using inside, or it qualifies the identifier in terms of if you are using a data, and there are some keywords in programming languages that are used to what kind of a data it is. Okay, it data type, we call them as data type, and with reference to the block of statements, with reference to the function. Okay, if I call a function, the function will be executed, right? A block of statements, a function is simply a named block. As I said, after the execution of block of statements, say 100 lines, after the execution of 100 lines, it should return some value, right? So that is their return is a keyword. So after execution of some blocks, we are qualifying what is an output. There also keyword comes into play. And of course, as I said, there are so many tasks that can be performed by Python. Those tasks were named as keywords, and in Python all the keywords are case sensitive. You should not use capital A and small a to each other, right? They are case sensitive and they will be considered as different. And there are 33 keywords in Python 3.7, right? So it's a matter of only 33 keywords. So this is the last question of the series. What is a variable? And to be simple, we can call variables or just references or names given to our memory locations where our actual data has been stored in the memory. So as we said already in the identifier parts, so the purpose of identifier is to identify a particular memory location Sometimes in that memory location your data can be there, or sometimes it can be a block of statements. So identifier is a collective noun that includes both of them. It includes a variable name as well as a name which is given to a block. Here the variable strictly speaks about only about the name or reference we give to the data variables, and the type of the variable is based on the value that we are assigning inside the memory location. It can be a number, it can be a float, which means a fractional part, or it can be a complex number. Python can surprises us by giving users to deal with complex numbers straight away, unlike the other programming languages. And it also deals with booleans. And so these are some types of data. Okay, you can also deal with sequences also, like strings, list, tuples. So but the thing is that these are the ways of storing your variable, which means data, in the memory. Again, if you wanted to call it back to do some operations, we need to name it. So all the identifier rules for naming conventions applicable to a variable also. The same naming conventions are applicable here.